Texas Early Learning Council. Welcome to the Texas Early Learning Council meeting for August 2nd. Excited to see everybody. I'm Stephanie Rubin. I will call us to order now, and the time is 11:01. So I thank you for the opportunity to chair. Reagan Miller is out today, so we will mosey through a great agenda, and I know we have some public comment and some great presentations and hopefully conversation and questions, and some updates about events. And then, if there is a chat function, if folks want to ask some panelists some questions. So please, thank you. And, thanks everyone for being here today. So I want to extend a welcome to everybody. I'm not sure if the Office of the First Lady is here yet, but she may join today, the staff person, Madeline. And so when she joins, I'd love to welcome her as well. And in the meantime, just a reminder, this is a Zoom webinar. Council members, presenters, and agency staff are participating as panelists, while members of the public are able to participate in listen-only mode. Please, for the members on the panel and staff, please mute your phones and other devices when you're not speaking. And Megan Schneider will also mute us if needed. Megan is the Interagency Director of Early Childhood Support, who will serve as today's meeting facilitator. And so also when speaking or asking a question, just as a reminder to kind of state your name and your affiliation, which is helpful for those listening. And the opportunity to submit public comment closed at 5 p.m. yesterday. Members of the public are able to request to provide oral public comment today by emailing Megan Schneider at megan.schneider, schneider, @tea.texas.gov. And she will put that information in the chat in case we have some last minute folks who want to offer some public comment. And I think the next step is for us to start with minutes approval. So I'm going to ask all the panelists to look at their email and pull up the draft April 2024 meeting minutes and take a look at those for a second and see if you have any suggested edits or changes. And once you've done that, if somebody wants to make a motion for approval, that would be great.
Stephanie, this is Kathy Abbott, and I make a move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I will second. Kirsten Schwab.
Great. Okay, Megan, I think we have a motion and a second. So are you ready for the vote?
Yes, if I can get off mute. Can you hear me okay? All right. When I call your name, please reply for, against, or abstain. Kathy Abbott.
For.
Sarah Abrahams, I know is not able to attend today. Weldon Beard.
For.
April Crawford. Carrie Breeden. Alfrema Giles.
For.
Melissa Hoisington.
For.
Becky Huss-Keeler.
For.
Kim Cochran.
For.
Corey Lee.
For.
Beatrice Mata.
For.
Reagan Miller. Maricela Nava. Stephanie Rubin.
For.
Amber Sconlin.
For.
Jennifer Stockemer.
For.
Kirsten Schwab.
4.
June Yeatman,
4.
Megan Young.
4.
Great. The motion to approve the April 2024 meeting minutes has carried. And I will hand it back to you, Stephanie.
Thanks. Well, I think I'm just gonna jump in for a second here to talk about this next agenda item, which is always really important to us to hear some public comment. We have a number of people who did sign up. So I will actually pass it back to Megan to facilitate the our public commenters.
All right, sounds good. So as a reminder to everyone, earlylearningtexas.org has a section called meetings, and it houses all the meeting information for past and upcoming meetings, as well as the agenda once it's released. Public agendas are posted prior to the meeting date, along with instructions for submitting public comment. And we did have 5 registrations that we received for public comment today. As a reminder to all the folks speaking, please provide your name, your organization, and the agenda or topic you're commenting on for the record. And you'll have 3 minutes to provide your comment. When you hear a little chime sound at the 2-minute mark, that means you have 1 minute left. And council members might want to ask you questions after you finish talking, so just hang tight for a minute. I will say with the Zoom functionality, you should see that there's a request to promote you to a panelist, which will allow you to come on video and unmute. So I am not seeing our first commenter, Audrey Rowland. So Audrey, if you are on, but you have a different Zoom name, please just send a chat. And then we'll move on to our second person. So Erica Hayes, if you're able to unmute and come on video, we'd love to hear from you.
Okay, I have unmuted and my video is on. Good morning. I'm Erica Hayes, 13-year owner of Cornerstone Learning Academy and Childcare. I come before you on today to advocate for more funding to address the current subsidy wait list for my region, the Gulf Coast region. There are currently approximately 14,000 children on the subsidy wait list. Child care centers are operating at enrollment numbers that could currently eventually cause small private-owned child care centers to close their doors, which in turn would also increase the current unemployment rate. To offer some data to support the need for more subsidy funding, my center capacity is 108 with 38 children enrolled and 28 of those being subsidy. Some of my neighboring child care centers have similar numbers, one with the capacity of 131 with 53 children enrolled and 33 of those being subsidy. Another center with a capacity of 121 with 65 children enrolled and 48 being subsidy. While the idea of the pre-K partnerships with the public ISDs is great, it's currently not working. The ISDs are reluctant to partner. My center itself is losing 11 students to the public ISDs next week. In closing, providing subsidies does help child care centers, and providing funding will substantially help fill the empty child care seats. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hayes, for sharing. Council members, if you'd like to ask any questions.
I have a question, which I might ask some other panelists too on the same topic, which is, okay, so thank you for sharing about your center and enrollment. Can you give us a sentence or a couple of sentences explaining the difference between the capacity that you have and the number? Obviously there's the school-based issue, but is there a lack of awareness about scholarships? Is it that there are, subsidies? Is there just not enough subsidies, you think, for the families who need them? You obviously have room to serve more kids, which is great. So what's going on in the childcare subsidy world that's making it difficult for you to fully be enrolled?
So what I'm hearing from the parents is that they're on a wait list. So I have parents who come by and do tours and say they're interested, but they're on the wait list and they currently just can't afford to pay for the childcare, at the current rate itself out of pocket without assistance from the subsidies.
Okay, so that may be an issue. Is that an issue of your mind of ways to reduce the wait list, or kind of a priority through additional funding plus, they sound aware of the of the subsidy, so it's more about getting more subsidies out to families who are eligible. Does that?
Right. And I don't know what is the cost for the wait list, if it's staffing, they're just trying to work the wait list, or if it's just the funding is not there, but the parents are applying for the program. They're just not getting the financial aid available to get enrolled in the centers.
Thank you.
Yes.
Or any other questions? Or Megan, that's your turn.
Looks like
Um,
both Kathy, Abba, and Kim have their hands up.
Oh, okay, I can't see that. Kathy, you want to go ahead?
Stephanie, I wanted to chime in. This is Allison Wilson,
Wow.
workforce. So I'm here, in Reagan's place today.
Great.
Kathy Arwood with me. I did want to speak to that last comment, and that it is the case that the funding is just not available, and that's why we have so many families on waiting lists. We're just maxed out on that funding. So if that helps at all to, give some color.
Kathy, did somebody else have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you. This is Catherine Abba, Houston Community College, and I represent community colleges. Erica, thank you for your presentation. I think it was really important for us to hear. My question, I just have a brief question. You said, I think 11 students are going to the public school. Are they subsidy children? And if they are, why are they going to the public school over your program? Is it hours? Is it location?
So it would be a totally free program. So even if they are subsidy, the daycare would provide the wraparound care. So the before school and the after school. But the schools also have those same programs. And I'm hearing from the parents that the schools are actually accepting subsidy as well for the wraparound care now. I think that's something new. It was not anything I had heard of prior, but if you go in the childcare system and look up the after school programs, they are actually offering the subsidies now as well. So for the parents, it's going to be less cost because their after school programs only average about $60 to $65 a week, where the childcare before and after school program averages anywhere from $150 to $175 weekly. So it's going to cut their costs tremendously. And that program, for the parents that are my private pay customers, if you had to choose on paying for childcare services, of course you would choose free. So what's happening, we're getting the children ready, which is great. We're potty training them. And the ISDs near me are now offering full day 3-year-old and 4-year-old programs.
Thank you. Interesting.
So
Yes.
Erica, this is Stephanie again. So it sounds like the proportion of your students are more infants and toddlers as a result. And that's also a question on reimbursement rates, right?
Yeah.
Whether the reimbursement rates you're getting are sufficient to cover your costs if you're mainly serving infant toddler, or is that leaving a gap for you? So
I think that it's sufficient. It's just a lower ratio that's required in those age group. Of course, infants is 4-to-1, toddlers is 1-to-9, and our 2-year-olds is 1-to-11. So even with us increasing the staff to accommodate those children, we're coming out with a higher payroll cost to serve the less age of children versus we could hold 18 pre-K students at one teacher. There's less overhead in that category.
I guess if we thought about reimbursement rates as adjusting for that kind of additional staff cost, that would help too, but that would of course be increasing the reimbursement rates for infant toddler, which is a longer discussion, but
Right.
But given your population, it sounds like that is a financial strain. So thank you.
Right. And I think we're at the highest we can go as far as pricing for the area that we live in, you know, for us, the median average income. If we increase the rate for our subsidy, it would probably put our private pay customers in a situation as well.
Right.
Erica, that goes to my question to jump in, is tell us a little bit about where you're located and what community you serve. Obviously, you have a need to serve the subsidy and our low income families. So just can you paint us a picture where you are in the Gulf Coast as far as what families you serve and what community you serve?
So I'm located in Southeast Houston. We're on the cusp of a lot of areas, but my childcare centers are zoned primarily to Pasadena ISD. So the address is Houston, but we're serving primarily Pasadena ISD customers. And so we're at 45 South in Houston, Texas, and Dixie Farm, which would be considered the South Bell Ellington area.
And would you consider you're in a middle income community, a lower income community?
I feel like we're median income. However, the schools around us are lower income. I feel like because I'm on the edge.
Yeah.
So I would have to say, based on the things that are around me, it would actually be lower income. Now, I do pull some customers because of their work who are higher income, but it's not because they live here, it's because they work near here, because we're surrounded by Clear Lake, Webster, and Pearland and Friendswood.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that.
No problem.
And Jennifer, you had a question. You're muted, I think, Jennifer. Stop. There we go. Now we still can't hear you.
Okay.
Oh, maybe that's better.
Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm Jennifer Stockamer, and I'm the director and owner of Ivy Vine Preschool in McKinney, Texas. And I just wanted to thank Erica for her presentation that was very well researched. And I just wanted to state that anecdotally, I can support everything she has just said from a perspective in McKinney, Texas and surrounding areas. So as a council member, if there's anything that's needed of me, I'm happy to step in and help research, fill these gaps, and do anything else that might help all the providers in Texas.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. We appreciate you. Unless there are any other questions, we'll move on to the next speaker. Back to you, Megan.
Great, thanks so much. Again, thank you, Erica, for sharing. So next on our list is Jacqueline Reza. Jacqueline, are you able to unmute and come off or come on video?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I'm having a little bit of technical difficulty this morning. Thank you for having me today. My name is Jacqueline Reza, and I am the owner and director of Flowers in the Garden Child Development Centers out here in El Paso, Texas. And I'm here to highlight the critical issue, which is the CCS funding. CCS offers vital scholarships that help cover childcare expenses, and it provides the essential support for families working to improve their lives. Whether parents are employed, pursuing education, or undergoing job training, CCS helps them so that they can be able to get back to work. But right now, there's a big waiting list. And just like everybody has been saying, we have siblings even on waiting list. So we have families that have children at our centers right now, and then they had a newborn, and that newborn is being placed on the waiting list, and the waiting list is 1 to 2 years. And so, however, recent reductions in CCS funding have posed serious challenges. Due to the funding shortfall, when a family with an existing CCS contract has a new child, they cannot add the sibling because of that lack of the available funds. This forces the families to find alternatives and disrupting their stability and affecting their child's development. Additionally, these funding cutbacks limit our ability to expand our services. We cannot introduce new programs or enhance the existing ones, especially like for our centers that are Texas Rising Stars. So I'm gonna give like a scenario of what it looked like for me. I was receiving 12,000, I'm just giving a number, but I was receiving about $12,000 a month based on about 30 CCS contracts, and that wasn't my full capacity, but that was about what I had. And when these contracts got reduced and they have no more funding there, I lost about 11 to 12 contracts. So now my revenue right now is 6,000. And so it's almost 6,000. So now it's like half of what I'm doing. And so I'm having to provide quality care at a half price, because now I'm filling up those 11 other spots, right? With families that cannot really afford the full amount that Texas Rising Stars can reimburse us. So that's kind of like where the lack of funding is that parents, like, I can't expect a parent to pay me $200 a week. Like, there's parents and parents have two or three kiddos, and so it's just really hard for them to make that happen. But I just wanted to highlight the importance of what CCS funding looks like, and how the waiting list is just a year. I believe it's a year or two. And parents are having to call every 3 months and report and try to see if they're going to get that funding, but it's just not coming soon enough. And children are getting affected, and centers are having to do a lot of reductions in our quality care. I've had to reduce my staff hours. That's kind of where I had to start. I had to, because like someone was mentioning right now, right, that payroll is the biggest thing on our operational costs. So I had to reduce their hours, but then because they were working for their child development associate because of the Texas Rising Stars program, now I'm having staff members go to, thankfully at our center, we do not have this issue, but my colleagues, a lot of our centers, what is happening is they're leaving to the school, or they're leaving somewhere else where they can pay them more. McDonald's is paying $12 to $15 an hour, and we can only pay in our area. We're from El Paso. So right now our average salary for childcare providers is between $9 and $12 an hour. And that's us just literally stretching every dollar that we get. So I really just wanted to highlight the importance of how this is affecting our centers and our families here in not just in El Paso, but in Texas all over. Thank you for your time today, guys.
Are there any questions, Jackie? I have one but I would love if somebody else wants to ask something about the El Paso environment or challenges.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, in the meantime, Jacqueline, so you've now brought up another issue, right? Which is, of course, the wait list and the number of kids, and what, therefore, you're able to pay your teachers, which, you know, is less than fast food and you know, other industries pay. And these are obviously people with very important roles in early brain development and are valuable. So that's another kind of issue that is affected by the state funding, federal funding and state funding. When you talk about the cuts, is that because you had federal relief money or some other federal money that stopped, or what? When you had to make reductions, what was the impetus for that?
Yeah, so what happened right now, and I did look into this when it occurred, right? So what happened was those 11 contracts that we lost, they were directly from CCS. And those 11 contracts were, to be honest, most of them, we looked into it, and a lot of these families, the paperwork, that's another issue, is that the paperwork with CCS is so like, I mean, it's not ridiculous, because we understand why it's there, right? It's for a purpose, but it's just so extensive that some families, I mean, I am a working mom, and I'm a mama of two, and I could tell you sometimes getting home, you're barely making it, you know, you're barely getting there. And so to fill out all this paperwork and extensive stuff that is being required by CCS. So what happened is a lot of families actually did not meet the deadline. So when they did not meet the deadline, they lost their contract. And so these families, I was able, and it's not just my center. I could tell you that's what happened throughout a lot of centers, that unfortunately a lot of parents, in reality, it was their fault that they did not recertify, right? And then those contracts did not get reinstated. So those 11 kiddos, I wasn't gonna just toss them out to the city of El Paso and say, all right, let's see how you guys figure it out. I had to keep them because these families, some of them were like in situations of child abuse and neglect, because some of them are being placed at our centers because they have a certain situation at home. Some of them are because, families will need to go back to work. But in reality, when that did occur, it was due to, unfortunately, parents not responding on time. And so the reason I wasn't able to get those 11 contracts filled up again was because I wasn't going to toss my 11 kiddos out of my center. So I kept them. And right now I do have an association that's called the Road to Success here in El Paso. And what it does is it helps families with subsidy. And it's kind of like a nonprofit organization. And that's how I've been kind of helping my families within my program. But that's us within our centers. And I could just imagine other centers that are going through that don't have this access to this nonprofit organization that we were able to create. So for example, what I do is the nonprofit organization, I get scholarships for families, and I get donations from other people or other parents that can give like $10 towards scholarship for another family. But that's in reality what kind of happened there. It was that, families didn't follow through. And then because CCS has such a big waiting list, they don't have they're not issuing new contracts, in other words. And so right now it's kind of like we're kind of just holding and waiting to see when they're going to issue new contracts. And that's in reality the biggest problem here.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. So far we've heard about wait lists, more funding to reduce the wait list, more funding to help you pay high quality teachers so that they stay in childcare. Obviously, it makes sense when somebody would be attracted by the public school salary and benefits, but if we want to keep them in childcare, and then the issue, I guess, of kind of efficient and seamless renewals, so that families who are eligible can stay in the program rather than jumping
Yes.
out.
And maybe
Yeah.
creating a system, right, that will prevent this from happening in the future. Because like I said, by the grace of God, right, my center had some, I was looking at the problem for a while. And so I had a backup, right, which was my nonprofit organization. But other centers that do not have that backup, it left them in a situation. So I just think also maybe creating a system that will prevent this from happening, to be able to see, like, if a center is a Texas Rising Stars program and they need to provide high quality care throughout the whole year, then that funding also needs to match that. And so it's not just based on the kiddos that get enrolled by CCS. And like, there needs to be some other type of system in place to help prevent this.
Allison, did you have a comment? Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, and I've missed some of what Jacqueline shared because we're having connectivity issues. We're at the national meeting of CCDF administrators in Virginia right now, and we're sitting outside at the hotel. So apparently connection's not great here. But I did wanted to respond to a couple of things that I did hear. So I wanted to remind everyone that we are about to launch a new statewide CCS application for families. And we are hopeful that that's going to help streamline a lot of the process for families and providing information on those applications and documentation and more uniform practices across the state in terms of how families are outreached, either when they come up on the wait list and it's time for them to, apply, or whether they're already in care and it's time for them to reapply to be redetermined eligible. So that's something that's coming. And then I also just wanted to mention that we are aware that there are some special challenges in the El Paso and the Borderplex region. For the whole state, there is a waiting list. Almost all of our workforce areas do have a waiting list. And that is because funding is not adequate to serve the number of available children. And of course, we've been steadily increasing our reimbursement rates over the last few years. Our base rates are now at the 75th percentile, and then of course higher rates if our cost of quality survey shows that the rate should be higher. That typically happens with a lot of the infant rates. And then, of course, we have the enhanced rates for Texas Rising Star. But at the end of the day, it's still, you know, an infinite pot of money that can only go so far. And we've been increasing rates and increasing the number of children served as we see our funding go up, but it can only go so far. And as regards to Borderplex, they did have some challenges in staffing last fiscal year, towards the end of the last fiscal year, that resulted in some management issues. And they finished out last fiscal year over enrolled. They had more children enrolled than what they had funding to serve. They went into this year very high, and they are still over enrolled even now as we finish out the fiscal year. So they have been particularly challenged there, because with 12-month eligibility and the fact that we do continuity of care, meaning if a family's in care at the end of 12 months, we automatically will redetermine them. And if they're still eligible, they stay in care. We don't kick families out because we've run out of money. So they're in a place where they're having to kind of slowly right size based on attrition, and that has really limited their ability to enroll new families. So we're aware of their particular challenge, and I know it's disheartening for all of us to hear how long those wait lists are, but I did want to just kind of provide a little bit more color so folks would understand why that is, and that we are, of course, working very closely with that board to remedy their situation. It's not like turning a speedboat. It's more like turning an aircraft carrier. I mean, this is a large program, and to make changes in caseload, those things just don't happen fast. So
Thank you for that background. That's very helpful. Thank you. And thank you, Jacqueline.
Thank you.
I believe June has a question.
Oh, June, sorry.
First of all, I just wanted to commend Jacqueline and Erica both for coming and speaking and putting things out on the table. I think that's really, really important. And I just wanted to make a comment and point out that this whole situation, this whole issue is historical. This has been going on for years and years and years and years and years. The National Association for the Education of Young Children has this little cycle, and this is a topic that's been focused on for a long time at NAEYC. Quality, affordability, and compensation. It's a cycle. And those three things are so interwoven, and it's very complex. And it's like Allison said, it's like turning an aircraft carrier. And Texas Early Learning Council and the nonprofit organizations and all of the players. I'm supposed to be representing the workforce, the early care and childhood education workforce as a council member. Owners, directors, parents, families, we're all a part of this. And the more we get together, like Jacqueline and Erica coming and commenting, and the more Texas Early Learning Council works together with all the different people, the closer we're going to get to a solution. And I just want to encourage us, because it does get depressing and it does get overwhelming, but we need to continue to move forward, to talk about these things, and to come up with ideas and try things out. And, you know, some parts of the solution can work for a while, and then you have to do something else. So I'm just urging all of us to keep working on this, because quality care and education is what families need. It's got to be affordable, and the people working to provide that deserve to be compensated, not just adequately. They need to be compensated for the very hard work that they do, because it takes a lot of training and education to be able to do this well and to provide quality care and education. That's it.
Thank you, June. Appreciate that. And thank you, Allison, also for sharing the update on the progress you're trying to make on the more seamless renewal process and application process. So we appreciate that you all are being responsive to what you've heard and seen. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jacqueline, for sharing. Moving on to our third public commenter is Dipanshu Pandita.
Hey everyone, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, well, good morning. So my name is Dipanshu Pandita, but everybody calls me Deep. And I'm the CEO for Keto Education in the US. Keto is an international operator. We have presence in multiple countries, China, India, United Kingdom, most recently the US, right here in the great state of Texas. We have 4 operating locations. We are relatively recent, and we have 4 more on the way in the next couple of years, and hopefully many more to come. So let me start by thanking TELC for the amazing work it does and for the opportunity to let us share our thoughts. So as I was saying, we have experience in several countries participating in programs similar to the one administered by the Texas Workforce Commission. And even though our experience here is more recent, we're in a good position to compare, we feel, the pros and cons of these programs in different geographies. And we've seen these programs both succeed and fail, primarily based on funding and design. So since I have very limited time, I would just like to offer some observations on how to increase the reach and availability of the CCS program. As Maslow's hierarchy would dictate, first things first, we do need more funding. And that really needs to be resolved before we can have other conversations. But I feel like Erica and Jacqueline in particular, they've spoken eloquently to the needs for funding. Suffice it to say that without funding, the competition from the ISDs, the lack of funding, that poses a pretty clear and present danger to the viability of the program. So I'm not going to say any more about that, but just in the interest of bringing in a different side of the problem, I just want to focus a bit more on what might be driving the reluctance on the part of many numerous private operators to participate in these programs to a fuller extent, right? So what distinguishes us as an operator, perhaps, is that we're not solely reliant on CCS families. But we always offer a portion of our enrollment as scholarships, both to fulfill our objectives as educators and caregivers, and obviously to fill seats that we can't otherwise market as well. So first, a lot more private operators would make the right investments in workforce. And Jacqueline spoke a bit to the special needs of some of these families, the counseling resources that you need, not just the ones that the state provides, but also the kind of staff that you would need to have with some experience dealing with the needs of these families. And of course, the real estate, right? And many more private operators would make the right investments in workforce and real estate if there was some assurance that minimum payments would be made over a period of time instead of being left to the vagaries of attendance, right? And this applies to both the intake side, where maybe some assurance or minimum payments being provided to operators instead of a daily rate, so that they can have some notice on backfilling these spots as families leave.
That's 3, just FYI, that's 3 minutes if you can wrap.
Yeah, we could be doing a lot more to communicate the availability and the distinction in offerings at these schools so that families can find better fits. And third, while there is currently a pretty powerful financial incentive in place in the form of waiver of property taxes based on Prop 2, which is equivalent to almost 2 to 3% of a typical school's operating margin, different city jurisdictions have taken different interpretations of it and turned it into a very blunt all or nothing tool because of a 20% threshold. And even whether this is 20% of enrolled or sanctioned capacity is left to the cities. And I think everyone would be okay with a graduated, smaller benefits, as long as you have some spots open for CCS and over thousands of facilities across the state. I think that would still result in much larger capacity once the funding became available. and the wait list was whittled down some. So thank you once again for giving me a chance, and I'm happy to take questions now or later.
Thank you, Deep. Are there any questions or Kim? Yes.
Thank you, Deep, for being here, and Jacqueline and Erica, thank you also. Good to see you all and hear from you and hear, and you know, those of us that don't work in direct care anymore always are appreciative of hearing the stories. And June, I hear you. Some of these stories we've been talking about for a long time. So it's going to take all of us in the ship together, rowing in the right direction to fix. And Deep, I wanted to just talk a little bit about that contract idea. About the payments that aren't just based on the number of kids enrolled. You know, we saw that during the ARPA relief dollars, those stabilization grants, and they really made a difference for providers, right? You continue to get your reimbursement rates, but you also had this pot of money that really sustained the industry, and we saw that throughout Texas, and we saw that throughout the country. And I think so. Right now, we're at this point. We have there's 2 or 3 different states that are already continuing on with those type of foundational grants through their general revenue dollars. And so I think that's something for us to think about as a state as we continue to ask for funding. Yes, we need to put more money into the reimbursement rates. Yes, we need to do money to serve more kids. We're just barely scratching the surface of the number of kids that actually need care that we don't have the funding for. And then we also need to think about what else can we think about on that refunding, how we think about that funding. So not really a question, just kind of wanted to throw that out there as thinking about. Thank you for raising that up, Deep, because there is alternative ways of how we do that. That is, it's not an easy lift, and it's going to take lots of conversation, but something we need to continue to think about, because we had a great example of how that really helped the industry and helped families out and providers out, and most importantly, the children out during the pandemic. So thank you for your comments.
Yeah, and thank you, and I couldn't agree more.
Thanks, Kim. Any other questions I might be not seeing or missing? Okay, so we're adding to the list of kind of policy opportunities. And maybe after the final speaker, we'll have a good list of things for the council and also policymakers to think about too. Back to you, Megan.
Great. Thank you again, Deep, for taking the time and sharing. Our last commenter is Carrie Judas. Carrie. Carrie, I see you here. Are you able to unmute?
I am here, but for some reason, a lot of my technology is not working. Can y'all see me? Mine's showing a black screen, which is not, okay, y'all can see me. I just can't see me. Maybe that's better anyway. So good morning, council members. I think I can still say good morning for the next 15 minutes. So I am Carrie Judice, and I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy at TexProtects. And I'm here to provide public comment on the Early Learning Strategic Plan. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with TexProtects, we're the Texas chapter of Prevent Child Abuse America, and we advance public policy and local implementation to strengthen families to prevent child abuse and neglect. And we really go about this work collaboratively. And we convene several roundtables and networks of stakeholders who focus on children and families. And one of those networks is what I want to actually talk to you guys about today. And that is called our Texas Prevention Network. So back in 2012, TexProtects had launched what we called then the Home Visiting Consortium. And it included about 40 different folks from about 6 different home visiting programs. And really kind of the idea of them coming together was to align their asks for the legislative session. And really our team kept kind of talking about this network, and we really felt like they were being underutilized. So we surveyed the prevention partner network that we have to get input on what their needs are. And we really were trying to kind of find out if they thought some form of a more robust network would be helpful. And honestly, y'all, we were truly blown away by the fact that we got twice as many survey responses as we sent out. The feedback we got from these surveys honestly is not going to surprise anybody on this call. We got feedback that families are showing up with more complicated issues, and that providers have been struggling with staffing and retention, which has been an element that has been talked about already today. So we relaunched and rebranded a learning community and it's what we're now calling our Texas Prevention Network. We did so earlier this year, and now I'm really happy to be able to report that we have over 240 individuals that responded and said, yes, please include us. And we continue to grow every week. We hold the meetings virtually every other month, and they're attended usually by about 100 folks each time. The network wanted to learn from each other, so we always highlight a different local provider from somewhere different in Texas where they can talk about their programs, strengths, challenges, all the above. They also ask to learn from outside experts, so we always have a guest speaker. For instance, one of the times we had somebody come and talk about compassion fatigue. We also bring in state agencies to give updates. And all of the folks that are on the call, they ask to learn from each other. And so we offer time to connect with each other beyond the content at the meetings. And so we see this as a way to make our policy work more robust. We are able to learn from the providers every time we connect with them about the needs of families, the needs of providers as they implement their different policies and programs, which ultimately feeds into and informs our policy priorities. So any organization that provides services to families focused on strengthening them, preventing child abuse and neglect is welcome. So if y'all know of anyone that would be interested in joining, please have them reach out to anyone on our team. Or they can email me, Carrie@texprotects.org. So yeah, I really just wanted to make sure y'all knew about this opportunity and how much it's grown. So thank you for allowing me that opportunity to share it today.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you for tying it to the strategic plan too, which is important because we have talked about coalitions, we've talked about workforce and all those, goals of ours. So thank you for making that connection.
Yeah.
Any questions for Carrie?
Yes, I have a question. This is Becky Hess-Keeler. I'm a professor of early childhood education at University of Houston Clear Lake. And I was just, when you were talking, I was just thinking of, we have a social work program, for instance, at our university. And that's another whole group that you could connect with if you haven't already, is at the university levels of different different universities that offer a bachelor, master's in social work. And because these are people that are preparing to work with families like this. And I don't know if you've done that or not.
Not particularly with that, but I was just thinking to myself, I put my email in the chat. I would love to connect with you. Also, I'm slightly biased. I am an MSW myself. So would love to connect with your folks over there. But yeah, would love to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. And so I realize as the chair that I've gotten allowed us to get very off our agenda timing, but great presentations and great questions. And it's also just a reminder, it's helpful, I think, for the council members to hear about particular barriers, particular solutions that the community wants. And it's interesting to me, just as a comment, that some of the things that came up were areas where the state, through good work at TWC and through our federal dollars, have where we made progress, during the pandemic with the way that the amount of money we got federally and also what TWC's priorities were. But of course, that federal money has dried up, and that now there's an opportunity to, support that through general revenue potentially next session. So I think it's just, we often hear childcare is so complex, it's a broken system, and I just appreciate, that the speakers have come and given very specific recommendations and very kind of specific steps that the state could take to be helpful. That gets us out of this frame of like nothing can be done, because obviously there are very specific needs that people have. And also thanks to Carrie for convening community programs and partners to learn from each other, because that's really, really helpful. And as, programs are learning things and also trying to make progress to serve families even better. So thanks. Back to you, Megan.
Great. Thank you so much, Carrie, for joining and sharing. And that was our last commenter. So I will pass it on to you, Stephanie.
So our next agenda item is to tackle, again, to look at our Texas Early Learning Strategic Plan. I think we have some speakers here. So let's see, our first, let's see, just looking at the plan, we had just as a reminder, we have specific goals that we all worked on and talked about. And we had 4 goals. We'll hear updates today on goals 1 and 2. The first update on goal 1, family navigation, access and engagement, is the strategy 1.1, focused on helping families more easily navigate early learning programs and services. So we're going to go back to Allison Wilson to give us a progress update on that goal and strategy.
Okay, sorry, slow with the buttons here. Yeah, so our primary update around this is that we're about to kick off work for the integrated eligibility screener. So this is a tool that will live on the earlychildhood.texas.gov website. It will allow parents to enter information about themselves, their families, their children, to determine what programs for young children they might be eligible for, just to kind of give them that little bit of head start and then point them in the right direction if they want to pursue applying for those programs. So again, we're kicking that off here within the next few weeks, and we're excited about it. This will be largely an IT project, but it is one that we are planning to use human-centered design approach for, just like we did with the earlychildhood.texas website. So we're excited to get going on this. Kim, did you have a question about it?
Yeah. So you're kicking it off. What do you have? I know this is a $1 million question. Any estimated guess on when it's going to be, like what the goal is for it to be live?
So I would say the goal is by the end of 2025 calendar year.
Okay.
That's, how much time we have on that funding. And as I'm sure you can understand, these large IT efforts they take a while. They take a while.
They do. They do.
Yeah.
Great.
So
Great.
Allison,
Excited for the work to start.
Oh yeah, sorry.
That's right.
Yeah, can you clarify when you say, like, parents would put in their information and they'll get some indication of what they'd be eligible for, what universe of programs might pop up as what they'd be eligible for?
Well, so I think right off the bat, we're thinking childcare services, public pre-K, Head Start. And I think, yeah, okay, so that's going to be our first iteration. We are also planning to include, as part of our design, some kind of future thinking about what application programming interfaces we might want to kind of stub out, or at least get a start on, so that eventually we would not just, this first iteration, we'll just be taking in the parents' information and we won't be saving it necessarily, but we'll just be turning around a report to them that kind of tells them what they may be eligible for and giving them links to go to where they can submit their applications. But in the future, we want to think ahead and kind of have a system that can be built upon, so that other agencies, other programs, eligibility applications could plug into this. And we do envision that we would probably start with childcare. But that's all sort of the pie in the sky stuff, but we're trying to be thoughtful about what we would need to have in place with this first phase to make it easier to implement that kind of approach, to take that next step later.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I like the approach as kind of a parent notification so they can then make a decision about what they want to apply for. So that's, and I know that has a lot of policymaker support for that approach. I appreciate the long-term vision, because I know over at HHSC, there's also a lot of interest in like using SNAP, if families enrolled in SNAP, then also notifying parents based on their income information. Maybe they're eligible for their children to enroll in Medicaid or something else. So at some point, if there's a vision of cross system parent notification, because some parents are going to be eligible for a lot of these programs, that would be excellent. I know there was a bipartisan effort last session to, on this kind of SNAP, if there's a family SNAP eligible, letting them know about other programs. It would be great if that could be used for childcare subsidies and pre-K and back and forth, so that parents are getting good information, from multiple agencies or just one, but information they can use to make their decisions about their kids and make it very seamless for them, as opposed to looking on different websites and trying to figure it out. So thank you for tackling this and going in phases. We know the technology can sometimes be a challenge. Great. Let's see. So our next update is, let's see, we have an update on workforce recruitment and strategy 2.1 focused on increasing financial support, and strategy 2.4 retaining early learning workforce professionals. So we've heard a little bit about that from our public commenters. I will pass it back to Allison, who's going to give us an update, and also Megan Young will follow up with some updates from HHSC and ECI.
Okay, so we have a couple of initiatives that we've been working on in relation to this particular action item and strategies. So we did release another RFA, another round for grantees interested in standing up new or expanding existing registered apprenticeship programs for childcare. So that RFA has been out, and we have received applications for it, and it is currently in the selection phase. So we expect that before too long, this is one that we usually award to multiple grantees, so it does take some time to do the grant making and get those executed, but we're well on our way to accomplishing that. And then the second one I want to update you all on is the Early Childhood Professional Development Scholarships Grant. So this is our statewide grant that has been for many years. The grantee, that the awardee has been Texas AEYC. They did again win this grant, and we just executed that new grant with them. So this continues to support scholarships for people working in childcare to pursue their CDA, their associate's degree, their bachelor's degree, or to be part of a registered apprenticeship program and have those training costs covered. With this particular new iteration of the grant, there are a couple of new things that we're covering. So high school students will now have access to scholarships to pay for that CDA exam, because we did hear a lot from stakeholders that sometimes the Perkins funding that high schools have, it was just not easy to access or wasn't covering that need. And so we wanted to make it easy for those high school students who are going through those CTE programs to be able to take the test and, leave high school with a diploma and a CDA. Another thing that we're planning to cover with this is some of the costs for mentoring fees for those apprenticeship programs, where a lead teacher in a classroom is being asked essentially to not only be the lead teacher, but to also provide some coaching to that apprentice. So we built in some funding as well for that. So this is a $3.5 million grant per year. So a lot of support there to expand professional development in the field for the childcare workforce.
Allison, can I ask you a question? If this is great, and I've heard June and Catherine and others talk about and, you know, childcare providers talk about the importance of a career ladder, you know, and getting more education and credentials. In the subsidy system, maybe there's not something specific in the reimbursement rate, but as employees go from a CDA to associates to bachelors, does that get reflected in a reimbursement rate going to a childcare center necessarily? Or how, you know, we did hear about obviously teachers moving to the school district. So once they have a bachelor's, that's obviously attractive unless there's some pay parity. So does that work into the reimbursement rate?
Texas Rising Star is a hybrid rating system. So we have both structural measures. Those are like, you either meet them or you don't, and you have to meet all of them. And then there are the points-based measures, and those go across, you know, the 4 different categories, with some categories having a lot more points-based measures than others. But education and training does have some points-based measures associated with it. So when you increase the number of staff that have these kinds of credentials, you do up your points in that particular measure. Now, whether or not it actually drives a star level increase is really going to, it's a combination of all the other measures, right? So that's not a structural thing, like you check that off and it bumps you up a level. It's the combination of all those points based that gets you to a particular star level. So, you know, one program, and these were based on the changes we made, not with this 4-year review, but the one before it, when we shifted our emphasis to be more on caregiver child interactions. So that's now 40% of the weighting of the 4 categories. And so that does mean that, you know, you could have a teacher who only has a CDA, but they're amazing in the classroom and how they interact with the children, and you could still end up with a 4-star rating, versus you could have somebody who's maybe not quite as amazing, but they're inexperienced and they're learning and working their way up, and maybe they've got one of these credentials. You know, that program might gain points that way. So I think we've sort of allowed for a lot more flexibility to recognize competencies while also providing a way to award points and recognize where people are earning these credentials.
Yeah. Well, it seems like programs, if we're encouraging, you know, more training and education, that, you know, finding these ways to help programs support that, the salaries of people who take that as great. Yeah.
And the other thing I'll say, you know, we do hear a lot from providers who are concerned with participating in the scholarship program, because, you know, you hear, just like we heard earlier, that they've got a bachelor's degree, they'll leave and go work for the school district because they can get more money and have better benefits. So the one thing that we do have going for us, and what we try to explain, is that it takes a long time for somebody to earn a bachelor's degree while they're also working, particularly if they're working full time. And the way the scholarship program is structured is that it rewards those teachers with financial incentives periodically along the way, and post completion of that degree, they have to stay with that program that they signed up with. They have to keep working there. So when you think about how much turnover there is in childcare just across the board on average, the teachers that participate in these programs and are really invested in, you know, getting their degree or whatever, their employer also has greater confidence that they're going to get to retain that teacher for longer while they're in the program.
That's great. Thank you for that update.
Yeah.
Becky, you have a question?
You're on mute. I would, as you know, I'm Professor of Early Childhood, and we have at University of Houston Clear Lake, and we have 2 bachelor programs for non-certification that are early childhood, a Bachelor of Applied Science and a Bachelor of Science in Early Childhood Care and Education. And my question has to do with the Texas Rising Star system, because in the past, now this might have changed, but they only award a hire up to the associate degree. Has that changed? Because they only look, and especially for directors and things, you might have, because we are part of the McCormick Center at Early Childhood Leadership. People can get their director's credentials and stuff as part of our bachelor program and also our master's program if they want. And I'm just curious, do you know if that has changed, that they have with the Texas Rising Star, as you mentioned, they can move up the star system if they have a more educated workforce as part of the whole package, but have they also added bachelor's degrees to that?
So Becky, I'll have to go back and look at that. I don't remember. I know that we've made some changes, and we made some changes with this latest review to like recognize Montessori credentials and some things like that. But off the top of my head, I'm not that familiar with down in the details, and I don't have my TRS guru on the call with me, but we can circle back.
Very helpful for you, because if that's the case, you know, if you're supporting this, and it would be very helpful, especially with all the other things we've talked about with Texas Rising Star. If then it doesn't make any difference in that center whether they have a bachelor or not, it doesn't help the center. See what I mean? It needs to all work together as a group.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Becky. Anybody else? Thank you, Allison.
Sure.
And I think we'll go to Megan for the addition of our workforce discussion. Megan Young.
Allison, you covered all your updates, right? Are we ready for the next slide then?
Yes, I think I covered. Yep.
Oh, no. Awesome.
Oh, there was one for me. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Just thought I was done. Okay, staff retention. And I'm trying to get my camera back on, but it's not cooperating. There it goes. Okay, so we have had for several years now a grant for staff retention strategies. And Becky, you mentioned McCormick Institute. The previous 5-year grant we had 2 grantees. Both were following McCormick's, one of their Leadership Institute programs. And basically, you're bringing in administrative director level, leaders from childcare programs, and they get to go through this very comprehensive adaptive leadership program where they start out like really taking a look at their baseline and understanding what kind of work climate they have for the teachers that are in their employ, and how parents perceive the program, and then go through, a process to learn how to lead in a way that helps their program adapt and hopefully retain employees, because it's a good place to work. So we issued another grant because it was time. It had been 5 years, and that is currently out there. And those applications were due this week, maybe yesterday. So we will be here pretty quickly entering the evaluation phase for this grant. That's my update.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, Megan, over to you.
Yeah, so our update is about some trainings that ECI is delivering and has developed related to some of the topics that were identified in the needs assessment. So so far this year, our local ECI programs have provided 53 trainings to child care centers on inclusion of children with disabilities. We've also posted our best practices for including children with autism training on our website. If there's a link on the slide, and I'll ask someone to send it through the chat too here. And then we are midway through our new training on addressing challenging behavior, which we're really excited about. So the recordings of the first 2 trainings, which are called the functions of behavior, and teaching new skills. Those are already posted on our website, and the third training will be available later this month. They do build on each other. So if you're telling people to take the trainings, they should start with part 1 and then part 2, and then part 3 will come out soon. We've gotten really excellent feedback from the ECI personnel who attended those trainings. And personally, as a parent of a 2-year-old, I found the information incredibly useful. So I think anyone who is working with small children, working with families of small children can really benefit from these trainings. So we're really excited to make those available to everybody.
Great, Megan. So it sounds like childcare providers, other family serving organizations, parents. So we have to figure out, I guess the state will figure out its way to disseminate across system, and then many of us can help too, right? Because not everybody would look on the ECI page and go, oh, that makes, you know, I should watch that because I'm the audience for it. So that's helpful. Kim.
That was kind of my question is, Megan, is how are you making that available to the childcare providers to know that it even exists? I know they've got a library. I know they've got a contract with Texas A&M AgriLife. So like, just curious on how's that getting disseminated to childcare providers? We hear this all the time when we're in community about the challenges of working with children with challenging behaviors, et cetera. So I would love to be able to point them in the right direction.
So let me double check. I know that so these trainings that are recorded on our website, the ECI personnel are the primary audience. We did have trainings that were delivered at oh, I don't have the name of the conferences in front of me, but we did have a behavior training and an autism training that was delivered at a conference with childcare providers in the audience. We just don't have the recordings posted on our website. What we're planning to do is once the behavior series is done, package the links together in an email that we can share with some key partners, happy to share with all of you here too, that can easily kind of be disseminated out to those direct service personnel who could benefit from it. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that's
okay.
I think that's a good start. They're just craving that training. So the more resources we can point them to, the better.
And Megan, there was a question in the chat about whether you got feedback from parents in the development of these.
We did not have direct feedback from parents in the content of the trainings. They were developed by someone on our team who's a licensed behavior analyst and has a lot of experience working with parents and with families.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Megan?
This is Allison again. I had just one comment that I wanted to share, kind of related, that our commission just approved for fiscal year 25 a new statewide initiative that makes, I swear every time I hit the button to turn the camera on, it's doing the opposite. Sorry for like flashing on and off.
Okay.
$3 million for a program that will target professional development around children with special needs, inclusion practices, and challenging behaviors. Now, a lot of that's going to be targeted towards, a lot of it will be targeted towards childcare providers, but also towards our workforce development boards and helping to make sure they have staff with expertise and know how to access the resources that are out there when, you know, children with these needs are identified. So, and we continue to work really closely with Megan and her team. We've got the ongoing collaborative symposiums that we do that are cross agency for frontline staff across the agencies, so they can continue to you know, learn about what the other agencies and the other programs do and share knowledge, and yeah, we're going to keep doing that too. So
great, thank you. Any other workforce recruitment and retention questions for our speakers? Otherwise, Megan, I think we can go on to our next item. We're almost back on track, maybe.
There is a question in the chat.
Oh,
Maybe Allison might want to answer. Asking about the extra CCS funding available for children with special needs. How providers are informed about the opportunities available.
So the funding I was speaking about is, that's for professional development activities, more along the lines of what Megan was just sharing, but somebody had asked a question about PD specific to childcare programs. And they're doing some of that. And I just also wanted to share that we're also doing that. But there's not a funding set aside for subsidies for children with disabilities. They are a priority population, so they get served within those priorities if they're on our waiting list. And depending upon the type and severity of the disability the child has, they may be eligible for, the provider may be eligible for inclusion assistance for that child, and that allows the provider to get up to 190% of the reimbursement rate to help offset some of the costs of caring for children with certain disabilities. And that's there now. And if it comes up and a child needs it, we pay it. It's not like a fund based on funding availability or anything like that. So, but we want to make sure that our boards are better equipped to identify those children and assess when they have a need for the inclusion assistance rate and, determining what's appropriate. But also many of the children that what we heard from a lot of our stakeholders, and I'm sure everyone on this call is aware too, is that there's really a spectrum of, issues that children in these group settings may have. And it's not necessarily something that they, need additional help in the classroom for, but it may be something that the teacher needs more training to know how to manage those behaviors in their classroom. And they may need, better resources and training to know how to talk to families, to know how to reach out to early childhood intervention, all of those things. So we're trying to help kind of build the knowledge base up there.
That's a good reminder about the importance of the connection between ECI programs and childcare, that they know each other well, and when these kinds of opportunities come up, that they take advantage of them together or lean on each other. So that's useful. Right, Megan? That's one of your goals, I think, right? Is to make sure childcare and ECI are kind of collaborating to help families in this way.
Absolutely. And that's a big focus of that first bullet here. The trainings that we have on inclusion talk a lot about when and how to refer to ECI, how ECI can help benefit by providing services in the classroom when the family desires that type of thing. And that's really the focus of that first one.
Thanks. Great. Thank you both. We have some updates from some Early Learning Council members, other members. And we will start with one of my favorite people, Chelsea Cornelius, who's our research director. And I just wanted to explain this a little bit. I think for Early Learning Council members who've been around since the beginning, you'll remember a presentation, I think from David Fagan, a long time ago when we were in the development phase of the school readiness dashboard. And then when we had our first iteration, we shared, and there was a lot of participation from a number of Early Learning Council members and other colleagues to give us some feedback about what would be a useful approach. And we are now, Chelsea Cornelius has led the update of it. And also we've been reaching out to communities and answering a lot of questions from policymakers too, who are using it more. And so I just asked Chelsea to give the update about the revisions, the additions to it, and ways that the Early Learning Council members and also members of the community could maximize this research and resource. So Chelsea, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Stephanie, and thanks, Megan, for helping me get my slides ready and advancing them for me. So as Stephanie mentioned, I'm the Director of Research and Evaluation at Texans Care for Children, and the dashboard was launched almost 2 years ago now, and in spring we updated our dashboard, including more recent statewide data and some new regional data, and updated our policy recommendations some of which I'll share with you today. So if we want to go ahead to our next slide, this is our vision statement. The dashboard is a tool to highlight opportunities where Texas can make progress towards our vision of all children arriving on that first day of school ready to reach their fullest potential. You might be asking, why school readiness? That's our next slide. You can skip on to the next one too. Unfortunately, too few Texas children are arriving at school with that strong early childhood foundation that they need to succeed in school. We know that TEA's reports on kindergarten readiness indicate that about half of children are deemed ready for kindergarten upon entry. And while there is agreement that early childhood is important, and as is school readiness, it seems that state leaders and advocates have really historically tackled these issues in silos. And so the impetus for our dashboard was a realization that we need a more holistic view of school readiness. There are many factors that influence whether a young child has the experiences they need, and we think that many factors should be considered and tackled to make sure that more kids are getting that strong foundation that they need to be ready for school on day one. Next slide, please. So before I get into the actual data, I just wanted to briefly reiterate our intentions with this dashboard. We want the dashboard to be an easily accessible resource for timely and relevant data. So a place where stakeholders can go to get a statistic or a research article that they need without having to filter through a bunch of data or academic jargon. We want the dashboard to inform state policy and funding decisions, and we do provide specific recommendations for lawmakers to consider. We want the dashboard to help state leaders and local communities align their priorities and measure progress. But ultimately, the goal is to focus attention on the needs of Texas families with young children. Next slide. This is just a few quick notes about what the dashboard is not intended to do. It's not meant to be an exhaustive list of everything that's important to the well-being of kids and families. The indicators that we report on do have strong evidence of impacting child well-being, but we know that there are other equally significant factors that are going to affect children's school readiness. Our dashboard, for the most part, shows statewide averages, and sometimes we do disaggregate into subpopulations like different races or ethnicities or even regions of Texas, but the dashboard's not meant to measure the progress or even the school readiness of an individual child. So we're always talking about groups of children in our dashboard. And relatedly, it's also not a measure of the efficacy of any particular intervention. So we do cite a lot of research that shows how programs like ECI, like Head Start, like Medicaid health insurance are associated with positive outcomes, but we're not comparing these various programs and interventions. Instead, we're trying to showcase the many ways that policymakers and community leaders can address school readiness. Next slide. Okay, so the dashboard is comprised of multiple domains or categories that research shows is critical to school readiness. We have sufficient household resources where we report on things like poverty and food insecurity, positive family-child interactions. We think of things like participation in home visiting programs, daily reading in the home. Good health and development is where we report on access to healthcare, attending routine checkups, developmental screenings. Enriching early learning experiences is where we report on indicators like access to Head Start, childcare, and public pre-K. And then we also have a section of the dashboard dedicated to the demographics of children in Texas. Overall, there are about 20 indicators, most of them related to programs, services, resources, activities that just have a strong evidence of impacting child well-being. And combined in one place, all of these indicators help make the case that when kids have access to healthcare, enough food to eat, and nurturing relationships, then they're more likely to walk into kindergarten ready to succeed in school and in life. So Megan, may I have the ability to share screens?
Absolutely. So I just stopped sharing, and
Okay.
you should you should be able to share screens.
Let's see. One panelist can share at a time. Okay. Let's see if that works. Can you all see the readiness dashboard. Okay.
We see your desktop.
You see my whole desktop?
Yeah.
Even my notes? Okay, this
It's
is
a
our,
very cool photo of some aloe.
oh, that's not at all what you should be seeing. Let's stop. I'm gonna try that again. Desktop, no.
I will just say that in the development of this dashboard, we looked at dozens and dozens of dashboards in mostly other states, but some in Texas, some national ones. And, you know, it's been an interesting process in developing, there we go, one
Okay.
that has gotten some good feedback from folks. And a lot of people gave us input on the early versions of it to help inform this latest version. So thanks for anyone listening who was part of it. Okay, go ahead, Chelsea.
Okay, so here we are, our dashboard. This is texasreadykids.org. I'm just going to kind of briefly show you around a little bit, and I encourage you all to dig in and find something that's of interest to you. And I'm happy to meet one-on-one or come back to a different coalition or group meeting to talk about some indicators that might be of most interest to you all. But a lot of the data and research live under this menu right here, the actual dashboard. So we can start, just get an idea of how many kiddos we're actually talking about by going to our demographic page. You'll see that 1 in 10 births in the US each year is a child born in Texas, with Hispanic births making up about 50% of the 373,000 babies born in Texas each year. And that is also represented in the number of children under age 6 in Texas. So we have about 2.3 million children in Texas who are under the age of 6. And these numbers just indicate that if we improve school readiness of Texans, it's going to have some national implications as well. We also report on a demographic underneath our sufficient household resources. So I wanted to show you all one of our indicators that has a newer regional map. Here you can see that 1 in 3 Texas children under age 6 is living in or near poverty. That's at 150% of the federal poverty level, which amounts to about $47,000 for a family of 4. And while the rates of poverty are unacceptably high for all races and ethnicities, our Black and Hispanic children are 3 times more likely to live in or near poverty than our white children. This next graphic shows that the poverty rates vary across the state of Texas as well. So this is probably really small on your screen, but this is a county level map of Texas, and the colors are representing the regions that the counties are rolled up into to provide a statistically valid estimate of the poverty rate for that region. So you can kind of hover over the map and find your particular county and the region that it's associated with, and then go up to this bar chart to see what the actual data value is for the region that you're interested in. And so this map and this indicator in particular shows that while all regions of Texas have, almost all regions of Texas have a poverty rate that exceeds that of the national average, there's quite a bit of variability across Texas, with almost half of all children under age 6 living in or near poverty in South Texas to about 22% in the Austin area.
And Chelsea, just remind folks, we didn't come up with these regions. These are regions.
This one in particular is the comptroller regions. There are 7 of these regional maps sprinkled throughout the dashboard, and we tried to find ones that had the most like sense-making names, and also the ones that fit the actual indicator. So in our good health and development section, we're looking at a lot of families who are enrolled in Medicaid and going to those well visits or their developmental screenings. And so we use the managed care service areas map. For looking at things like child maltreatment, we use DFPS regions. So there's a little bit of variability in the regional maps. One thing that I wanted to show you all while I'm on one of these is that you can download any of these graphics, and they're already, labeled with our logo. So we encourage you to put them in your own presentations, use them as you'd like. You can download, pop into a bigger browser window, or even share on social media. Another way to download the infographics is over here. So you can download all of our infographics in one place and find the ones that you're interested in. You can also be a data nerd like me and download the actual numbers into Excel spreadsheets. All of the indicators live in their various categories of data on these Excel spreadsheets. We can take a peek at one more. Here we're looking at SNAP enrollment. One thing I wanted to note too is that our team spent a lot of time coming up with this like very concise but dense narrative that illustrates provides evidence for why this indicator in particular is important. So this is another way that the dashboard can be useful for grant writing or providing more justification for why this indicator might be important. We hyperlink evidence and articles so that you don't have to go out and do a literature review on your own. Most everything should be articles that aren't behind a paywall, so everything should be really accessible to our stakeholders. This is where we highlight how there's research to show that having access to SNAP is associated with improved birth outcomes, increased healthcare access for children, improved child health. But we also know that our state doesn't provide funding to be able to do outreach for families. And there are consistent problems with our eligibility system, leaving Texas ranking near the bottom of all states in enrolling eligible children in SNAP. So about 25% or 1 in 4 eligible Texas families with children are not receiving SNAP. And that percentage is even higher for our Hispanic families in particular. One last navigation thing that I wanted to show you all is that at the bottom of each page, we have a box here that leads you to our policy recommendations page. You can also find that by just navigating to the top menu, but here's where you can go to learn more about our policy recommendations for that particular group of indicators on our dashboard. So now I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about some of the impact that our dashboard has had so far, some of the conversations that we're hearing popping up. If we can go back to just the last few slides in the slide deck, I'll stop sharing. Thank you. We can just go to the next one. So we are starting to see some evidence of conversation changing in the media with a little bit more recognition of the multiple factors that impact school readiness. So with the childcare crisis and the unwinding of the continuous health coverage during the pandemic, we're starting to see that there are multiple environments and factors that are affecting whether kids are deemed kindergarten ready. And go ahead to the next slide. We're also starting to see some evidence from representatives in Texas who are acknowledging the multiple factors related to school readiness in particular, and even citing our dashboard as confirmation of this need to address multiple factors to boost our school readiness of our kiddos. And next slide talks a little bit, shows a cover page for our brief about legislative progress that was made on our dashboard. So last session, we saw postpartum coverage for moms on Medicaid extended for a year, which was in line with our dashboard's recommendations. We also saw some key efforts to reduce entry into foster care, increased home visiting program funding, and also an increase in early childhood intervention funding. And finally, we're starting to see how the dashboard is supporting local initiatives. These two examples come from groups, organizations, and nonprofits in Texas who took a statistic from our dashboard as a call to action to change something about the way that they were working on the local level. So both of these examples actually looked at our indicator on the percent of children who are read to daily in the home. 75% of children in Texas under age 6 are not read to daily in their home, and Texas ranks 50th last in the nation on this indicator. So both of these organizations took that as a call to action to start providing more books to families and to increase awareness about this indicator in particular. And I think that might be the last slide. I'm happy to take any questions if we have time for that, or my contact information. Feel free to look me up or email me. I'm happy to meet with you all to discuss anything of interest further.
Thank you, Chelsea. I was just going to add, one of the things we tried to do with the dashboard as compared to what lots of others do, which is, they'll lay out the data, and sometimes it's kind of difficult to navigate, but then you get to, well, what does that mean? And then a recommendation is like greater access to X, Y, and Z, but without kind of more specific steps. So one of the things we tried to do, if you go to the policy recommendations page, is to acknowledge the great steps Texas has taken on some of these indicators in different ways, whether it's, the support in the legislature and by the governor of postpartum, extension for a year, or other moves on pre-K, moving to, funding for full day, but then kind of indicating what other steps are next. So we know that sometimes we get we hit a brick wall if we say like Texas is the worst on a particular indicator, but then there's no kind of context to like, but we're making progress and there's more progress. So that's part of the message of this is, Texas has made strides in a number of areas, and there's many practical, steps that are next. And we tried to lay out things that are practical as opposed to just kind of like, broad goals without clarity for policymakers about what they can do. So, and I'll just say, Chelsea has her email hopefully is in the chat, but please, anytime, let us know if you have feedback or suggestions or ways that you could see this being useful in the community, because it's supposed to be a helpful resource, and we're still figuring out ways to make that happen, and we appreciate the input of everyone. Thanks, Chelsea. Great. Okay, so am I missing any questions or comments? Because I'm not scrolling through. Okay, great. So we have some other updates. I think we are back to Allison and Megan again, if I have that right. So let's go to Allison.
Hey, it's Kathy, actually Kathy Arwood with TWC. And I wanted to share a few updates. So regarding our family childcare networks, many of you know that we previously had 2 family childcare networks that were local networks. And we have just recently released, and I believe we released this on July 5th, a request for applications for a statewide family childcare network. We had issued this request for applications previously, but we wanted to reissue it to allow for more inclusive applicant eligibility requirements. And I just want to point out that this new family childcare network will also provide opportunity for quality and supply, to build the quality and supply of family childcare providers with funding for family childcare providers seeking to become newly permitted or permitted at a higher level. So going from registered to licensed. And so that's something new about that. This application is open until August 27th. So applications due then, and we look forward to seeing those. I also want to mention our employer childcare solutions. We will be starting this. This is a new initiative that is meant to be a supply building initiative to meet the needs of employees. So meet the employer staff. We've heard a lot about that recently. I know I see a lot of things in the news lately about the needs that employers have because of the childcare concerns of their staff. And so this opportunity would provide technical assistance to employers to identify solutions for their employees' childcare needs. It helps employers develop partnerships with existing community providers or create a plan to develop their own on-site or near-site center if community childcare does not meet the need. And these employers will receive an employee needs assessment, employer feasibility and cost study analysis, options analysis and recommendations report, a site selection report if they are going to open a new childcare center, and it will also help them with their business plan, all free of charge for the qualifying employer. I want to mention what this does not do. It does not fund the startup of this new of any new centers. This is specifically to support those employers in identifying the solutions that work for them. Next, I want to mention our infant and early childhood mental health consultation program. So many of you are aware, and some may not be. So the Early Childhood Interagency Work Group, which consists of leaders of the early childhood programs within Texas Workforce Commission, Texas Education Agency, Health and Human Services Commission, the Department of Family Protective Services, and the Department of State Health Services. And we're using the PDG funding to pilot an infant and early childhood mental health consultation program to support children, families, and educators and service providers in 3 settings. So childcare, home visiting, and early childhood intervention. So we're in the planning stages right now, but I do want to mention a couple of updates here that UT's Texas Institute for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health has recently released a funding opportunity for site selection. So we are looking to identify 5 sites that would be able to host mental health, infant and early childhood mental health consultants that would work within the settings that I just mentioned. So we are in the process of identifying that, and UT's Institute for Infant and Early Childhood Mental Health is also developing what we're calling the Texas model of what this looks like, and also looking to identify the sustainability. So how can we sustain this model? So those are some reports that will come out of this project. State staff from UT, DFPS, HHSC, and TWC just recently attended the IEC MHC. We love our acronyms summit to receive some TA from national experts and also learn from other states about this. So we just kind of wanted to share the progress there, as it wasn't on the strategic plan, but it's part of our preschool development grant funding. So I see you have a question, Kim?
Yeah, with the employer childcare solutions. So is there an RFP for that, or is that just you guys are setting that up, and then who at TWC would be those? If I'm an employer, how do I find out about the program, and who do I reach out to?
Right. So we have not published it yet. There will be
Okay.
There will be a funding opportunity published for the technical assistance first. And this will not be competitive. They will just need to, technical assistance providers will need to just meet certain criteria. And so that should be published mid-August. And we'll have a website or a web page that folks can go to. Once we get those technical assistance providers ready, we're going to then publish more information for employers, and they'll be able to apply online and select which one. We're hoping that we'll receive multiple TA providers, and they'll be able to select which one they think will be best meet their needs based on a profile. So more to come on that. Right now, it'll still be, in that development phase of the funding opportunities. So I don't think I can really say much more than that.
Yeah, and Kathy, which TWC staff is? I would love to chat about this offline. So, who should I call?
You can reach out to me.
You? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions about these updates?
Thank you,
Thank
Kathy.
you.
All right, next slide. And I think Megan might be back up. Great.
Right. So the HHSC Early Childhood Intervention program, we're about to enter the last year of our 5-year contract that we have with our local programs that are operating today. We also call them subrecipients. So we are preparing a request for applications, or RFA, to enter new contracts for state fiscal years 2026 through 2030. We have included the RFA on our procurement forecast. I'm hoping Jillian can share the link in the chat there, with a planned posting date of October 2024. Upon release of the RFA, interested parties will have an opportunity to submit questions and participate in a respondents conference for the RFA, where we can respond to questions. However, I cannot answer any questions related to the RFA content outside of that Q&A period. Respondents will have 30 days to respond to the RFA once it is published. It is open to any qualified entity, and if you would like to sign up to get an email from HHSC when the RFA is posted, there's a link to input your contact information, and we'll share that in the chat as well. Also wanted to just note, in our last meeting with this group, I mentioned that we had put out a request for information to seek input on potential requirements for the RFA. And we don't have time to get into the details today, but in the upcoming ECI Advisory Committee meeting, which is scheduled for August 13th, I will be sharing a summary of the RFI feedback that we received. That meeting will be webcast, and a recording will be posted on the HHSC website if you're not able to join live. And thanks, Jillian, for putting those links in the chat.
Thanks, Megan. That was my question. One of my questions was going to be, you know, I know you got a lot of feedback from ECI providers. I mean, thank you for asking for it, which is great. And that I know you, a number of ECI providers sent in, you know, ideas and described their barriers and made suggestions. So the fact that you're going to share that update is great. And then if there were certain things that ECI elevated, you know, the program's elevated that that are going to affect the RFA, that's really helpful to know. And I'm glad you're going to share that at the advisory committee meeting, because of course, programs always want to, or anyone, we all want to like offer input, and it's nice to hear when it's taken and used. So it's wonderful. And when is that meeting again, the advisory committee? So we'll know when to look for information that might be posted.
Yeah, the meeting is scheduled for August 13th, and we should have the agenda posted next week.
Okay. Great. Any other questions for Megan? Wonderful. Okay, next, I guess the other are there any other updates that other committee members want to share today that we didn't have on the agenda? And now it's open agenda time for things you want to share about progress on any of the strategic plan goals and strategies.
Stephanie, I don't have an update on strategies around the strategic goal and plan, but I just want to give an update on an opportunity meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'll drop the link in the chat for everybody, but the Prenatal 3 Collaborative, which consists of Children at Risk, where I work, Texans Care for Children with Stephanie, and then you heard from Carrie earlier from Text Protect. We are hosting an open meeting. Many of our great state leaders will be there to give an update, and then we'll do breakout rooms. So thank you for state leaders that will be there, state agency people. It'll be August 21st from 1 to 2:30. So I'll drop a link in the chat. If you would like to attend, please join us, and please feel free to share.
Kim, one other, maybe you have these dates at your fingertips, but there's upcoming legislative hearings that are relevant.
There are. We will have for those of you interested in the pre-K through 12 public education, there's a hearing on August 13th. There is also a hearing at the National Resource and Economic Development, which is the committee in the Senate that oversees Texas Workforce Commission, is having a hearing on September 17th. Where's my head? And then we are expecting to hear an announcement from the IRED, which is the International Relations and Economic Development Committee, which is the House side of that committee that oversees TWC and childcare. We're expecting to have a public hearing in early September from that. So we don't have an official date for those, but those are all interim hearings where we get a chance to meet with legislators and talk about those issues before we get into the craziness of session. So it's a great opportunity for all of us to participate. So I know we've got stuff on our website. Stephanie's got stuff on her website that if you want to come testify, or if you want to watch online, all those are available. So.
And I think, Kim, remind me, is the one you mentioned about pre-K, that's the frame is early literacy, right?
The frame is early literacy. So yes, there's an opportunity there for us to talk about early childhood.
Right. Any other updates? Thank you, Kim.
Hello, my name is Beatrice. I'm with Ector County ISD, and Kim, I'll be there on the 13th in Austin, so maybe I'll see you there. That's exciting. So I wanted to share a little bit about TASPIC, and so I am dropping a invite right now within the chat. And so our 2025 TASPIC Symposium, and what it stands for is Texas Association for Supervisors, for Administrators and Supervisors of Programs for Young Children. That's a really long acronym. And so the symposium is meant to help leaders, just build their capacity. And so within the symposium, we're going to have opportunities to network, to hear fabulous keynote speakers, and once again, just many learning opportunities. And just this is really meant for anybody in a leadership role. And once again, TASPIC will be held this year in Odessa, Texas, and I'm going to save the date right now. So I hope some of you can join and put it on your calendar and see you here in West Texas. Have a great day.
Thank you, Beatrice. I guess we're on the well, either the updates or the events coming up, where we've sort of melded those. So if there's other events that anyone wants to share that would be relevant to members or the public, is anything coming up? All right.
Stephanie, I'll share one on behalf of Tori, and should just step out. But the Early Childhood Education Division at Texas Education Agency has a bunch of different webinars always. And so just wanted to take this opportunity to highlight a handful that are coming up. Jillian dropped the link to the page in the chat where you can sign up for any of these. Just looking at the month of August, we have one about high quality pre-kindergarten, specifically teacher qualifications. So that is one that might be of interest to folks. There's also one about pre-kindergarten registration and enrollment, as well as early childhood education assessments. And that's an office hour. The other two are webinars. So would encourage folks to go check out that website. On that site, you can see both upcoming and past webinars or office hours. And those are all geared at district level program staff.
Wonderful. Anything else? All right, well, let's talk about just our next meeting, right? Should I turn it over to you, Megan, to give us an update about the next meeting?
Sure, just that it's taking place on October 18th. That'll be our last meeting of the year. And it's also where we'll look forward to 2025 and decide what cadence we'll be meeting on for next year.
Great. Any other questions or comments? So we still won't have one in person yet, right? So that's, we'll see if we can still work on that. But that would be nice to get together at some point. See if we can swing it. All right, well, we might end up with 6 minutes left to, go do something fun with your morning or early afternoon. Thank you everyone for participating. Thanks to our speakers. We know that taking time out of your day is tough to do that, and we appreciate it. And thank you to members. I know if you have feedback for Reagan or myself or Megan about other agenda items or other opportunities to make progress on some of the strategic goals and strategies, please let us know, because we want to make these meetings obviously useful and maximize your time. So we are definitely, open to everyone's input, and maybe that's even something we can talk a little bit about at our next meeting, which is what kind of structure, what agenda, breakout rooms, other small groups, working groups you think might help us to make more progress. Because I know there's a lot of like information coming directly to you rather than, working groups, but I also want to make sure those are, you all think any approach we take is a valuable use of your time. So if you have any ideas, please send to Megan or myself and Reagan, and we will, talk to the council about them, kind of organize them and come back to you. Does that make sense, Megan? All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your day. We appreciate you. Bye-bye.